During the chaos of World War II, the lines between friend and foe often blurred, not just on the battlefield, but in the weapons soldiers carried. Amid the mud, fire and confusion, troops sometimes found themselves using the very firearms that had been pointed at them hours earlier. The idea sounds reckless, grabbing an enemy's weapon in the middle of combat. But it wasn't just rare moments of desperation. It happened far more often than people think, though not quite in the way that video games or Hollywood might lead us to believe. Captured enemy weapons were indeed used across all major fronts by soldiers of every nation. From American GIs firing German machine guns to Japanese troops wielding United States rifles, history is full of such accounts. But behind each story lies a web of complications, ammunition shortages, unfamiliarity, risk of friendly fire, and the deadly possibility of booby traps. Understanding how and why these situations arose gives us a clearer picture of just how chaotic and adaptive warfare could be. One of the biggest challenges in using captured weapons was, well, ammunition. A United States soldier who picked up an MP40 might feel like he'd just upgraded to a superior weapon, until he realized he couldn't reload it. Armies designed complex logistical systems to supply their troops with the right ammunition, so swapping to a gun that fired a different caliber could quickly leave a soldier stranded with an empty weapon. Unless he could scavenge enemy ammo, his newfound firepower was honestly useless. There were, however, situations where captured weapons made sense. Training was another issue. Soldiers spent weeks or even months learning their own weapons, how to clear jams, clean parts, and adjust sights under pressure. An unfamiliar gun could malfunction or misfire at the worst possible moment. A German who picked up an American M1 Garand might figure out how to fire it, but, understanding its subtleties in the heat of battle was another matter entirely. Even if he survived, finding replacement parts or a manual was, well, out of the question. Then there was the simple fact that most soldiers were issued specific weapons for a reason. Military squads were built like clockwork, with each member filling a role: riflemen, gunners, grenadiers. Abandoning one's weapon for an enemy firearm could frankly disrupt the entire system. Of course, there were exceptions, many of them fascinating actually. Pistols, for example, were among the most commonly captured and reused weapons. Sidearms didn't require much ammunition, didn't interfere with primary weapons, and, well, they made excellent trophies. Another practical use of captured weapons came in defensive positions. Troops setting up strongholds often found enemy machine guns, mortars, or artillery left behind. Instead of discarding them, they integrated these weapons into their defences. Ammunition compatibility occasionally made captured weapons even more attractive. The Germans, for instance, made extensive use of Czech ZB-26 machine guns captured early in the war because they fired the same ammunition as standard German models. Likewise, British and German forces both used 9mm rounds, meaning MP40s and Sten guns could sometimes share ammo. Disposable and single-use weapons were another story entirely. Items like grenades, mines, and anti-tank weapons were often captured and reused because they didn't require resupply or maintenance. Sometimes, though, desperation left no alternatives. Resistance fighters and partisans behind enemy lines relied almost entirely on captured or smuggled weapons. Soviet partisans, for example, used German rifles, pistols and machine guns, anything they could seize during raids or ambushes. Of course, not all captured weapon use came from necessity. Personal preference played its part. Some German soldiers loved the Soviet PPSH submachine gun for its high rate of fire and reliability. Others admired the American M1 carbine for its lightweight design. The risk of friendly fire, however, loomed large. Soldiers quickly learned to recognize the distinct sounds of their own weapons versus the enemy's. US troops trained to identify German MG42s and MP40 by sound long before reaching the front lines. Using one could instantly make a soldier a target for his own comrades. No country made more systematic use of captured arms than Nazi Germany. Facing production shortages and bombing raids that crippled their factories, the Germans repurposed weapons on a massive scale. They issued captured Soviet, French and Czech weapons under official German designations, printed manuals in German, and even converted some firearms to use German ammunition. The PPSH 41, for instance, became the MP41R after being rechambered for 9mm parabellum. By the end of the war, captured weapons had filled the gaps left by shattered production lines, lost supply chains, and failing morale. Frontline troops stuck with standard-issue rifles, but rear units and militia forces often carried a mismatched collection of whatever could still shoot. Each weapon told a story, not just of battle, but of improvisation, survival, and the blurred boundaries between enemy and ally. So, yes, troops absolutely used captured enemy weapons during World War II, but not for the reasons pop culture suggests. It wasn't about upgrading firepower or looting the battlefield. More often, it was about necessity, opportunity, or simple human curiosity. Whether a soldier picked up a German Luger as a trophy, manned a captured MG42 from a foxhole, or relied on a Soviet rifle because his own had failed, these moments reveal the incredible adaptability of men at war. Each gun, each round, each choice could mean the difference between life and death. And in the fog of battle, survival made strange allies out of enemies.